This will be my second installment of analyzing the first UAP hearing in the United States in over half a century. I will focus on the question of whether or not there are other UAP programs funded by American taxpayer dollars that have not yet come to light, and what have they discovered about our universe that they have not shared with the rest of us 8 billion human beings on this planet. The following clip is taken from the great podcast Theories of Everything with Kurt Jaimungal. In it, Luis Elizondo is asked, how would civilization respond if they saw what he saw while he was the head of ATIP, a UAP study effort?
If the general public knew or saw what you saw, what would the next week look like? How would the public react?
Somber. I think there would be this big exhale for about a day. And then this turning inward and trying to reflect on what this means to us and our species and ourselves. I think...
somber, like a sigh of relief?
Somber meaning serious. Not like Hollywood portrays people partying in the streets and silliness like that. I think you would have some people perhaps turning to religion more so. You might have some people turning away from religion. I think you're going to have, at that point, the philosophical and theological questions will be raised, and people will have some serious soul searching to do, no pun intended. And I don't think that's bad, by the way. I think a lot of folks that have spent their times in this community being charlatans will have been exposed, and they will be probably unemployed and probably have to change their names because, the rest of society will look at them in an unfavorable light. I think there are some unsung heroes that will probably come to light, and the world will appreciate their contributions to this topic. I think the scientific community and academic communities, no, I can't give those names.
I know what I was going to say is names that have been announced before when you say the unsung heroes, or new names.
Yeah, names that haven't been announced before. Okay. I think the scientific and academic community is going to have to take a real hard look at itself and see why it repeated the same mistakes it did when Galileo first proposed that the Earth was not the center of the solar system. Hubris is a big part of that. And then I think, maybe we start the international conversation, say, okay, we realize that there's some things out there that are probably well beyond our petty discrepancies we have with each other. Maybe we really need to start working together on this, realize that we are really a global family.
I want to reflect as quickly as I can on Lou Elizondo's major points during that amazing sentiment. Firstly, if we were able to see what he saw during his tenure as the director of ATIP, all 8 billion of us on this planet would feel a sense of somber. Not in a panic way, but in a, we have to take this serious way. Questions would be raised philosophically and theologically. And we would have to do some soul searching about what it means to be a human being, what it means for us individually, what it means for us collectively to learn indisputably that we are not alone and that there are technological craft in our atmosphere and oceans that surpass all known technology of unknown origin, and we don't know who the controllers are, presumably, and they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, and there's nothing we can do about it. And finally, science would evolve. And obviously it would, because a lot of the assumptions we made about reality would be eviscerated, and therefore we'd have to look at possibilities through a much more nuanced lens. What else is possible if this ended up being completely real? And so, what is holding this back? Is it the will of me? Is it the will of you? Is it the will of 350 million Americans? Is it the will of the United States Congress? Is it the will of all 8 billion of us? Is our vote, if you will, influencing the outcome of learning about this phenomena based upon evidence that has been gathered over many decades? And the answer to that is no. Emphatically, no. Now, that's a disproportionate balance of power that is highly disturbing and problematic. And there's very few people who would disagree with me on that, which is a testament to how unjustified this situation is. Irrational. Maniacal. Cray, cray. Cray, 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 cray. And so the only thing I can say at this point is that if any members of Congress are watching, which of course they're not, but if they are, I would say you're in an amazing position right now. If you set up these future hearings, get the right people on this quote unquote stand, ask them the right questions, set up immunity, as I know that you are right now, or as far as I know, you may play a profoundly integral role in changing this world in a way that is absolutely permanent. And you will be part of curriculum from now until the end of time for schools, for the history books. You will be in movies and documentaries. I don't know if that strokes your ego or not, but if it does, you may want to consider the opportunity that you have right now to change the world irrevocably, profoundly, permanently, and to be never forgotten based upon your role in doing that. Someone has to act. Someone has to step up to the plate. There's a very practical danger in this persisting, if it is, and look, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. There's a very practical danger in this persisting, delaying the truth coming out, continuing to obfuscate, mislead, lie, and so forth, could ultimately lead to a breakdown in trust of the government, United States government, potentially other governments, that can't really be repaired. Whether we're there or not, I don't know. I don't think so. I think now the iron is hot and we need to strike. You know, NASA is starting to look into this scientifically. Congress is starting to hold hearings. The Galileo Project is putting millions of dollars into this, mainstream science, to research it. Now is not the time to delay. Let's minimize the cost of these lies that have been told. Active campaigns to lead people astray on a fundamental truth about our reality. We got to knock it off. We got to stop. That's a national security issue. If your very own citizens despise you and don't trust you, then what kind of a country do you have? Can you even call it a country? I trust that the United States Congress and others will do what needs to be done to ensure this injustice comes to an end. And when it does, I will applaud the entities that made the right decision. And this leads me to the wrong decision, which is the video that Deputy Director of, I believe, Naval Intelligence showed during the first hearing. out of the archives you presumably have, maybe not you personally, Mr. Bray, but the United States government, pockets of the United States government, if you will, have of this phenomena, whether it's the video that's been discussed called the 23-minute video. Elizondo said it's like the same length as a Simpson episode. I like to call it the Jordan video because Jordan's number is 23. Elizondo has said, from what I recollect, in that 23-minute video, which is extremely long, there is a UAP, maybe multiple UAP, maneuvering in ways that just don't align with known technology, potentially multiple craft. Or how about the photograph or video, I'm not sure which one, that we've heard that was taken through a cockpit window within maybe 50 feet. Look, if this phenomena is real, people all over the world have seen it, it's not unlikely or implausible that based upon the vast sensors the United States military has, that high fidelity data has been acquired. We need to start sharing some of that data. It's a national security issue. Build trust in the public. Don't continue the sins of the past. This is the video the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, Scott Bray, part of the UAP task force that is transitioning into the AOIMSG office, shared during the first UAP hearing in over half a century. And indeed, this was the wrong decision. There is a 14,000-pound gorilla on the back of the United States Pentagon. Imagine what would have happened had they showed, just as an example, the 23-minute UAP video, which reportedly is high resolution and shows a craft, potentially multiple, because as I understand it, there were separations of whatever it was and they came back together. Very, very weird. They could have shown that. And instead they showed this, which is basically a metallic object seen on camera for less than a second. This is not what the American people were asking for. This is not what the United States Congress were asking for. This nonsense must end. You have better data, share it. Let us have that international conversation. If you're not God, you shouldn't play God.
One final note, we are mindful today that AIMSOG is not starting from scratch. This is the third version of this task force in DoD, and civil society groups like the Mutual UFO Network, Mr. Corbell and others have been collecting data on this issue for years. I hope you'll explain how you can leverage the knowledge and experience of our prior work on this matter to move the AIMSOG along. The last time Congress had a hearing on UAPs was half a century ago. I hope that it does not take 50 more years for Congress to hold another, because transparency is desperately needed.
So that was Andre Carson of Indiana, who is the chairman of that subcommittee that held the first UAP hearing in over half a century. Now, he explicitly stated that the AIMSOG, which is another way of saying AOIMSG office, is the third iteration of the UAP task force. And it has a lot more teeth than prior iterations. He referenced MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network that was founded in 1969, which comprises of civilian investigators into UAP. And he talked about leveraging the knowledge and experience of the prior work done by these entities. Now, this begs the question, which is extremely relevant. Was there any other efforts employed from the U.S. government beyond what we've been told about? Because if there is, it's very clear that this congressional committee wants access to that data. And that's part of why they're reportedly creating legislation for immunity, so that many people can come forward and share information they otherwise couldn't, including people from legacy efforts, which may not exist, but I highly doubt they don't exist, and maybe we'll go into that a little bit later in this video.
In short, we've endeavored to bring an all-hands-on-deck approach to better understand this phenomena.
All hands on deck, Scott Bray states. Well, in a recent interview, Luis Elizondo had a compelling criticism about that statement. He said that there were, until very recently, only 2 people in the UAP task force. My understanding, Scott Bray was one of them. And only very recently have they added a third by adding on a director who is named Sean Kirkpatrick. So, all hands on deck, and you have 6 hands. When you consider the weight of this issue, unidentified aerial phenomena, doing incursions into highly restricted military airspace with impunity, I don't know, all hands on deck is not 6 hands. It's more like 100 hands minimum. Which brings me to OSEP, which ran from, I think, 2008 to 2010. Now, I just looked at George Knapp's recent book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, an insider's account of the secret government UFO program, which I recommend. And in it, he talks about the employees that worked for that UAP program. At least part of what they did is study UAP. There were 50 employees with this effort. From military counterintelligence professionals, retired police officers, project managers, PhD level scientists, engineers, skilled technicians, Russian, French, and Portuguese translators, database analysts, security officers, and administrator staff. Each of the BASS employees contributed a lot of diligent work during the 2-year contract. What is going on here? Is this a joke? Is this a practical joke? UAP is serious business. Extremely serious business. And we don't even know about most of these incursions. We only know what we've been told, what's leaked. 2004, USS Nimitz UFO event series. David Fravor. Commander David Fravor. I mean, he was the top guy for his squadron. I think it was called the VFA 41 Black Aces, maybe. He was the leader, Top Gun pilot. Everyone that came forward during that event, every single one of them, and if I'm wrong, show me someone. They assess that what was encountered is technology of unknown origin surpassing all known technology. Now imagine if the Russians had that, or the Chinese had that. I hope not. Like many others have stated, including Marco Rubio and the administrator of NASA, Bill Nelson, we'd be better off if it was alien than an adversary. And yet, the AOIMSG office, as far as I understand, has 6 hands. And Scott Bray is saying all hands on deck. I mean, this is insulting to my intelligence.
People don't realize, Congressman, that this is happening every week. These incidents are occurring all the time.
So according to Lou, this is happening every week. Imagine that. There are 52 weeks in a year. So at the very minimum, 52 incursions into highly restricted airspace in close proximity to military assets like aircraft carriers. And as Scott Bray stated multiple times in the recent hearing, the U.S. military trains as they would fight. So if this is indeed foreign government drones that are highly advanced, they're collecting intelligence that puts the U.S. military at great risk for future warfare, because now a foreign government has great insight to how, for example, the United States Navy would implement a stratagem against a foreign military force. something's not right here. Something's not adding up. And when we look at the UFO issue, what's insane about it is how ubiquitous it is. Yes, it's has a long history of being interested in, for example, nuclear technology. But it also, quite frankly, and I know this is going to sound crazy, has a historical record of being interested in schools. Right now I'm reading a book by Preston Dennett titled Schoolyard UFO Encounters, 100 True Accounts. Now we're all familiar with the very famous account in 1994 in Rua, Zimbabwe. In fact, very recently a documentary came out titled Aerial Phenomenon that takes a deep dive into that. We're talking, as I recollect, 64 or more witnesses corroborating 2 discs landing in close proximity to the school. And for some of the witnesses, at least, 2 beings exiting those discs, and some of the witnesses going on the record saying they received telepathic messages from these beings. But there are other incidents that have been reported with high corroboration, many witnesses, very unambiguous sightings, often, most often in fact, in the daytime. Long duration sightings, if even just 1% are accurate, we're not alone. We're being engaged by non-human intelligence. I don't know what else to say. And yet there's 6 hands on deck for the UAP task force, the transitioning into the AOI-MSG office. Something doesn't add up here. And in fact, it hasn't added up for 70 plus years.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to join this hearing. I really appreciate the witness's testimony. Mr. Moultrie, as the chairman mentioned, DoD had an initiative to study UFOs in the 1960s called Project Blue Book. It's also been well reported in our briefing and in other places that we have more recent projects, specifically ATIP. Could you describe any other initiatives that the DoD or DoD contractors have managed after Project Blue Book ended and prior to ATIP beginning? Did anything also predate Project Blue Book?
So I can't speak to what may have predated Project Blue Book. I mean, of course, there's Roswell and all these other things that people have talked about over the years. I'm familiar with Blue Book. I'm familiar with ATIP. I haven't seen other documented studies that have been done by DoD in that regard.
So you're not aware of anything in between Project Blue Book and ATIP?
I'm not aware of anything that's official that was done in between those two. Okay. Hasn't been brought to my attention.
Okay. Additionally, are you aware of any other DoD or DoD contract programs focused on UAPs from a technological engineering perspective? And by that I mean, are you aware of any technology initiatives focused on this topic other than initiatives focused on the individual case investigations?
I am not aware of any contractual programs that are focused on anything related to this other than what we are doing in the Navy Task Force and what we are about to launch in terms of our effort.
Same question for you, Mr. Bray.
Same answer, not aware of anything outside what we are doing in the UAP Task Force.
So just to confirm, you're not aware of any technology or engineering resources that have been focused on these efforts besides what we've mentioned today?
Once again, I'll say no contractual or programmatic efforts that are involved. The reason why I qualify it that way. Yeah, let me qualify it that way. I can't speak to what people may be looking at in the department. Somebody says, I'm looking at something that may be unidentified, and I can't speak to that. I speak to official programs that we have on the record.
So the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security basically denied he's aware of any other programs between Blue Book and ATIP, which encompasses a very long swath of time. He used the word, I'm not aware of any official programs. he used the word contractual twice. Contractual programs, no contractual. And in addition to that, he used the word programmatic. It feels like he's playing lawyer ball. I don't know why he exerted so much effort to make all these caveats. I don't know why that would be required. I think what the Congress wants to know and what the American public wants to know, whether they're official or not, whether they're contractual or not, whether they're programmatic or not, do you have any programs, we often call them legacy programs, that have not been reported, that have not been told to the Congress or to the American people, that have been looking into this issue, whether studying cases or trying to learn how the propulsion system works, trying to learn the agenda, maybe alien biology, doesn't matter. And so this kind of answer by Ronald Moultrie is what makes people suspicious, that they're just not telling the truth, whether that's justified or not. And I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, the Congress ain't going to stop. There will be more hearings. They have and are instituting, I don't know if it's finalized, but they are instituting, as far as I know, an immunity plan so people can come forward. If there's something there, I think it will come to light. Now, here's an interesting tweet by journalist Tom Rogan of the Washington Examiner, and he focuses on national security, intelligence, foreign policy, and occasionally UAP. On the same day of the hearing, May 17th, 2022, he wrote, Mike Gallagher hitting the third rail here. Moultrie says he's not aware of any official or contractual programs related to UAP's post-Blue Book. Moultrie hedges that he's speaking about official programs. Watch this space. Let's just be realistic here for just a moment and do a little bit of a contemplation. UAP have been seen for over 70 years. FOIA documents have been acquired revealing how the U.S. government perceives this phenomena internally, even though that is at odds with how they express their perception of this phenomena externally. Patterns have emerged over decades from disparate sources that cannot be denied. Could be coincidence, sure, anything's possible. Pilots have seen them. Security guards for nuclear ICBM installations have seen them on many, many occasions. So many, in fact, that it's troubling. This phenomena is worldwide, seen by militaries all over the world, civilians all over the world, and it just won't go away. So there's two possibilities we can focus on. It won't go away because it's just a phenomena that exists within the psychology of the human mind. Many people all over the world are seeing things, they can't identify them, it's low information zone, and so they fill in the blanks and rumors spread. That's one possibility. Another possibility is this phenomena is absolutely real, and in the pile of sightings, in which most of them are indeed people just seeing prosaic things, there are some where they are not seeing prosaic things. Thus, the phenomena is real. I think it's the latter. And I think that will come out in a way that cannot be disputed. Now, Elizondo has recently come out. Came out in 2017. And one of the teachings, if you will, that he has spread about this phenomena, that he said him and his colleagues ascertained while working for ATIP, was that there are signs of this phenomena that pinpoint that it's the phenomena itself as opposed to a drone or a balloon or an aircraft that comes from a foreign government or the American government. And they are called the 5 observables. Let's go over those really quick. And these are the observables that are the hallmark of true unexplainable UAP. Positive lift or anti-gravity, the ability to fly without the apparent means of propulsion or lift. Sudden and instantaneous acceleration, the ability for a craft to reach a high rate of speed in a short amount of time. Hypersonic velocity, a craft's ability to reach speeds over 3,700 miles per hour, 5 times the speed of sound. Low observability, a craft's ability to conceal itself from any kind of radar, not well defined. Transmedium travel, a craft's ability to seamlessly move through space, air, and water. My assessment is that the U.S. government has the data. Not ambiguous data, not low information zone data, but they know this phenomena is real and is not of human origin. That's my assessment after poring over as much data as I can from 70 years ago until today. All the witnesses that have come forward. Now recall or recognize that you only need one witness to give an exacting and precise rendition of what they saw of an unambiguous sighting, and then we're not alone. It's just that simple. Or if you want to argue a foreign government has cracked how to manipulate gravity or whatever, fine, that's a possibility. I think I don't put it as a very high probability. I think that if they would have been able to done that like 10 years ago, sooner or later it would have found its way into industry. We would see it. What I'm trying to drive home right now with you, my beautiful audience, we're being played, in my opinion. And I know that sounds very tinfoil hattish, and I don't know what to say. I think we're being played. This idea that there's been no programs between Blue Book and ATIP is just preposterous. It's preposterous. Just think about it. There's unaccounted for technological craft that are coming in close proximity to our ICBM installations, to our carrier strike groups, and there's no obvious form or discernible propulsion on these craft. They fulfill at least some of the 5 observables. They're maneuvering in ways exceeding any known technology. The U.S. government has this data, electro-optical, radar, satellite, as the former head of the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, stated himself. And yet, there's swaths, decades and decades of time that have gone by, and the U.S. government had no efforts to study this phenomenon. Who believes that? Who? Who believes that? Not me. Do you believe that? It's ridiculous. It's insulting to our intelligence. Unless you want to proclaim that all of this is just low information zone. Maybe it is, right? Which is why I am very well known for always caveating that I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. And furthermore, maybe not as affirmative as we would like, assuming it's the truth. The U.S. government has said this is real. They said it's real. It's in the UFO report from June of 2021. Yeah, they use the word appear. They caveat with it, appear. Fine. It appears that I'm behind the webcam right now talking to you. It appears that I'm talking into this microphone right now. They're stonewalling, in my opinion. They're delaying. They're trying to wiggle out of this, in my opinion. They're not being clear enough, in my opinion. Why does it appear? Can you tell us why it appears? How many sensors grabbed the same reading on a craft, which led you to assess that it appears they're maneuvering in ways that are not understood according to our understanding of our aerodynamic sciences, aerospace sciences. Can you tell us that so that we can decide for ourselves whether this is truly appears, or you're just using that word appear because you don't want to be more straightforward with the American public? Because if you do that, now there's no plausible deniability anymore. Now there's a reckoning. And you want to know what? You want to know what I think? I think there are people in the Pentagon who don't want that reckoning. They don't want to have to be under a microscope. They don't want to have to answer to the American people. They want to retire. They want to kick the can down the road and let someone else deal with the blowback. I'm skeptical of the appear. And if they would explicitly tell me how many sensors collected the data and exactly why they're so hedging towards appear, maybe I could say, okay, fine, it's appear. But my reluctance to do that is based upon what I've seen. David Fravor himself said he saw the radar tape for his encounter, and he stated like he remembers it like it was 9/11. It was reported that there were presumably Air Force personnel that came onto the carrier and the Princeton, took the radar bricks, took the radar data, and flew off. Who are these people? What did they do with the data? How high level fidelity was that data? Why is the Air Force getting involved with this? And the Air Force won't even tell us anything. The Air Force has remained silent. You can say I got a tinfoil hat on my ugly face all you want, but I'm a suspicious SOB.
Last year's report also said that of those 144, 18 of them reportedly appear to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology, and some of them appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. That's pretty intriguing. And if you're able to answer this in this setting, are we aware of any foreign adversary capable of moving objects without any discernible means of propulsion?
I think I would, without discernible means of propulsion, I would say that we're not aware of any adversary that can move an object without discernible means of propulsion. The question then becomes, in many of these cases where we don't have a discernible mean of propulsion in the data that we have, in some cases there is likely sensor artifacts that may be hiding some of that. There's certainly some degree of something that looks like signature management that we have seen from some of these UAP, but I would caution. I would simply say that there are a number of events in which we do not have an explanation. And there are a small handful in which there are flight characteristics or signature management that we can't explain with the data that we have. We'll continue. Those are obviously the ones that are of most interest to us. Earlier, when we asked about how you avoid technological surprise, the biggest way you avoid technological surprise is by collecting this type of data and by, importantly, calibrating the assumptions that you go into with how you do that analysis. I'll tell you, within the UAP task force, we have one basic assumption, and that is that generally speaking, our sensors operate as designed. And we make that assumption because many times these are multi-sensor collections. We make no assumptions about the origin of this or that there may or may not be some sort of technology that we don't understand. That's, I think, the key to avoiding technological surprises, by calibrating those assumptions.
As I understand it, legislatively, there are 6 reports and briefings due this year on UAP. And those are separate from the recent UAP hearing we just had, and any in that same vein that we may get in the future, which we very likely will. So why do I bring that up? The reason I bring that up is because I guess I want to make some caveats. Just now, before the previous clip, I told you that I'm skeptical of the language appearing. Well, it's more complicated than that. I don't know, the task force is still undermanned to this day, the UAP task force. How much information were they able to gather for that report? I recollect that Eric Weinstein and Lou Elizondo were doing I think a Twitter space. And Eric said that when he read the UFO report from 2021, it gave him the distinct impression that there were various factions that were at odds with each other. One that wanted to play down UFOs and one that wanted to give accurate information. That was his impression from reading the UFO report. And Elizondo said, yep, you're right on the money. So when I say I'm skeptical that they don't have the data that demonstrates the validity of this technology beyond a peer, I just mean I'm skeptical. But I don't know the exact dynamics, if that makes any sense. That being said, if this continues, and we get hearing after hearing, in those 6 UFO reports and briefings that I just cited, and the language does not shift, they continue to hold the line. They don't have enough data to speak more definitively about this phenomena. I'm not going to wave that away. I'm not going to say that has no weight. That's just not how I roll. I think doing that would be intellectually questionable. I think at that point you have to give it weight. I don't believe these interests that don't want this to come out are magicians, sorcerers. No, enough pressure is brought to bear from the Congress, from the public, from the scientific community. It will come out. And so that's why I emphasize that it all comes down to the hearings. The hearings that we are going to have are going to be instrumental to get a better and more accurate picture of what's going on. And the last thing I'll say, because we're moving beyond the 40-minute mark, and I'm biased against making very long videos, is that how could you not feel like you're taking crazy pills when you follow this topic? If you really give an honest look at the history and how it's emerging again, and the rhetoric that's coming from our officials, current officials, retired officials, even Barack Obama, and you want to express as a skeptic that this is cut and dry and simple, and here's what's really going on, I'm sorry, I find that potentially disingenuous or something. Because it's really weird what's going on right now. It doesn't prove that we're dealing with beyond next generation technology. But if you think that I'm being inappropriate by being suspicious that we're not being told the full expanse of what the United States government knows about UAP, then all I got to say is, I don't know what to tell you. You can think whatever you want. It should get interesting in the coming months. And I'm glad you're here to traverse this with me. Now, I realized that my past 6 or 7 videos, my links were not working, so I apologize for that. So if you would like to support this channel on Patreon or give me a one-time donation or buy some merch or become a YouTube member, all those links should be working now. And I've gotten a lot of support recently, and I really appreciate it. That kind of support, frankly, justifies the amount of time and energy that I put into these projects, if you want to call them that, or it helps to justify it at least. And please do not forget to subscribe. But of course, if all you were to do is to slap a like on this bad boy, I would appreciate it so, so much. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're still watching at this point, which is amazing, you spent a really long picnic with me. I want you to put into the comments section vegetable, because we should probably eat more vegetables. I hear they're healthy. I'll see you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.